Over the years, the Asian Age has established itself as a respected publication in India's media landscape, known for its thoughtful approach to journalism and its commitment to covering stories that matter to its readers. The newspaper also collaborates with Deccan Chronicle, sharing many of its resources and content with the Hyderabad-based Daily, which enhances its coverage and reach across India. In today's June 25, 2024 edition, key stories in this issue include the situation in Israel and Gaza, India's current account balance recording a surplus. Jerusalem, June 24, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Sunday that the current phase of fighting against Hamas in Gaza is winding down, setting the stage for Israel to send more troops to its northern border to confront the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. The comments threaten to further heighten tensions between Israel and Hezbollah at a time when they appear to be moving closer to war. Mr. Netanyahu also signaled that there is no end in sight for the grinding war in Gaza. In a lengthy TV interview, the Israeli leader said that while the army is close to completing its current ground offensive in the southern Gaza city of Rafah, that would not mean the war against Hamas is over. However, he said fewer troops would be needed in Gaza, freeing up forces to battle Hezbollah. "We will have the possibility of transferring some of our forces north, and we will do that," he told Israel's Channel 14, a pro-Netanyahu TV channel, in an interview that was frequently interrupted by applause from the studio audience. "First and foremost, for defense," he added, but also to allow tens of thousands of displaced Israelis to return home. In other developments, 2 Israeli air strikes targeting aid supplies killed at least 11 Palestinians in Gaza on Monday, medics said, as Israeli tanks pushed deeper into Rafah in the south and fought their way back into areas in the north they had already subdued months ago. One strike at a food distribution center in Gaza City, near the Shati historic refugee camp, killed 3 people. Another, near Bani Sahela town in the southern Gaza Strip, killed at least 8, including guards who accompany aid trucks, the medic said. There was no immediate comment from Israel, which denies attacking aid efforts and accuses militants of causing harm to civilians by operating among them. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that the current phase of fighting in Gaza is winding down. Israel plans to send more troops to the northern border to confront Hezbollah. The move heightens tensions between Israel and Hezbollah, indicating a potential move towards war. Netanyahu indicated that the war in Gaza is not over, despite the reduction of troops. The possibility of transferring forces north is for defense and to allow displaced Israelis to return home. Israeli air strikes targeting aid supplies in Gaza resulted in the death of at least 11 Palestinians. Israeli tanks advanced further into Rafah and re-entered previously subdued areas in the north. Israel has not commented on the strikes but denies attacking aid efforts, blaming militants for civilian harm. New Delhi, June 24, SP Global Ratings on Monday retained India's gross domestic product, GDP, growth forecast for the current financial year at 6.8% and stated that high interest rates and reduced fiscal stimulus would moderate demand. In its economic outlook for the Asia-Pacific, SP Global Ratings said India's economic growth continues to surprise on the upside, with the economy growing 8.2% in the fiscal year 2023-24. The rating agency expects growth to moderate to 6.8% in the current fiscal year, with high interest rates and reduced fiscal stimulus tempering demand in the non-agricultural sectors. For the fiscal years 2026 and 2027, SP projects growth rates of 6.9% and 7%, respectively. SP's estimate for FY25 is lower than that of the Reserve Bank of India, which earlier this month projected the Indian economy to expand at 7.2% in the 2024-25 fiscal year. Other estimates include Fitch, which estimates India's growth at 7.2% in FY25, the Asian Development Bank, ADB, which estimates India's GDP to grow at 7%, Moody's Ratings and Deloitte India, which estimate India's GDP to grow at 6.6% in the 2024-25 fiscal year, and Morgan Stanley, which projects a growth rate of 6.8%. SP Global Ratings maintains India's GDP growth forecast at 6.8% for the current financial year. High interest rates and reduced fiscal stimulus are expected to moderate demand. India's economy grew by 8.2% in the fiscal year 2023-24. SP projects growth rates of 6.9% for FY26 and 7% for FY27. SP's estimate is lower than the Reserve Bank of India's projection of 7.2% growth for the 2024-25 fiscal year. Fitch and the ADB estimate India's growth at 7.2% and 7% respectively for FY25. Moody's Ratings and Deloitte India estimate a 6.6% growth rate for the 2024-25 fiscal year. Morgan Stanley projects a 6.8% growth rate for the same period. India's current account balance, CAB, recorded a surplus of $5.7 billion, or 0.6% of GDP, in the fourth quarter, Q4 of FY24, according to the Reserve Bank of India, RBI. This surplus was driven by increased exports in services and higher private transfer receipts. The CAB, which encompasses activities around industries, capital markets, services, and funds entering the country from other governments or through remittances, shifted to a surplus after 10 quarters. A surplus in the CAB suggests that the economy is a net creditor to the rest of the world, while a deficit indicates that the government and economy are net debtors. Previous quarters, the CAB was in a deficit of $8.7 billion, 1% of GDP, in the third quarter of FY24 and $1.3 billion, 0.2% of GDP, a year ago. Services sector performance, services exports grew by 4.1% year-over-year in Q4 of FY24, led by increases in software, travel, and business services. Net services receipts totaled $42.7 billion, up from $39.1 billion the previous year, contributing to the CAB surplus. Current account deficit, CAD. The CAD moderated significantly to $23.2 billion, 0.7% of GDP, during FY24 from $67 billion, 2% of GDP, during the previous year, due to a reduced merchandise trade deficit. Monetary policy suggestions. Jayant Varma, an external member of the RBI's Monetary Policy Committee, advocated for a 25 basis point rate cut, citing retail inflation approaching the RBI's target of 4% and emphasizing the need to shift focus towards promoting economic growth. Inflation and growth projections. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, and inflation for 2024-25 is projected to be only 0.5 percentage points above the target, with core inflation remaining very low. Economic growth in FY25 is expected to be 0.75 to 1 percentage points lower than the 8.2% growth in FY24. Financial inclusion initiatives. RBI Deputy Governor Swaminathan J. emphasized the role of state-level bankers' committees, SLBC, in enhancing financial inclusion through better coordination with government and NGOs in credit planning. This is part of the goals for RBI centenary celebrations, referred to as RBI at 100.